I made a brand new game for the SEGA Master System. And if I did it, so can you. This is Hexapon, developed entirely by me using DevKit SMS. But first, what is Hexapon? Hexapon is a game invented by Martin Gardner in 1962. It is played on a 3x3 board with 3 chess pawns on each side. As in chess, pawns can move forward when there's an empty space in front of them, or diagonally to capture an enemy pawn. The game can be won in 3 different ways: by moving one pawn to the other side, by capturing all enemy pawns, or by making it impossible for the enemy to move. What makes Hexapon really interesting is that it is played against an AI. Not the kind of AI that people are used to dealing with nowadays, but one made out of matchboxes. Each box represents one possible board pattern reachable during the game. On each pattern, there are colored arrows showing the possible moves for the machine. Inside each box are colored beads matching the moves. The movement is decided by drawing one of those beads at random. If a move leads the machine to a defeat, the bead representing it is removed from the matchbox, so the machine won't repeat it again. Hexapon is a really cool way of showing how machines and even humans can learn. Ever since I learned about it, I became fascinated, and I've been using it in my classes to demonstrate learning principles. I've been doing ROM hacks for a while now, and while it is certainly fun, there's only so much you can do by modifying an existing game. So of course I wanted to do my own games. The problem is that my experience with coding was very limited. I had typed in some basic programs on my brother's TK-85, a Brazilian ZX81 clone, and I've done some things here and there with other languages. But to do a Master System game, I had 2 options: using Z8 assembly as developers did back in the day, or using C to code with DevKit SMS. Of course, learning C would be easier, so I started studying online and I even enrolled in Harvard's CS50. I also learned from great tutorials on how to develop games using DevKit SMS, like the ones by Sverx and Xfixium. Hexapon seemed like a good choice for a first game on the Master System for a couple of reasons. First, it is a game with a very limited scope. It could be a single-screen game, avoiding complicated things, at least for me as a beginner, like scrolling or parallax effects. Also, being an old game meant that someone had already implemented it in some language. And it was precisely the case. I found a bunch of versions of it, and this one, done in BASIC, was my starting point. I found this blog in which the author dissected it to do a version in C. Unfortunately, the author stopped updating the blog right when they were about to start doing the actual coding for the gameplay part. But maybe that was for the best, so I could think about my own solutions. Logic-wise, the game is very simple. We have one array to store all possible board states when the machine has to make a decision, and one array with all possible moves in those states. A random number between 0 and 3 selects the move. If the machine loses, its last move is removed from the array. But of course I didn't start with the code. The first thing I did was coming up with the main screen for the game. This is what one of my first drafts looked like. I guess I was borrowing too much from Sega Chess, so I decided to do something more unique. I began improving the pieces, and then I moved to a completely different color palette. The next step was rethinking the user interface. I had this whole 80s vibe in mind, so I used some old home stereo systems as inspiration. The first information I was going to track was the number of victories for both the player and the machine. But then I thought it would also be nice to have some measure of the machine's intelligence, that would go up as the number of possible moves went down. Then I realized I didn't need such a big meter. As Gardner mentions in his article, the machine becomes a perfect player after losing about 11 matches. So I resized the meter, and with the space gained, I decided to offer a map of the possible board patterns, as a way of making the matchboxes more visible in this version. I must confess this isn't obvious if you don't know the original game. Making this map actually led me to a side trip. I wanted to do something like LEDs connected by traces on a printed circuit board. I wanted to do it with the fewest crossings, just like real hand-drawn PCBs were done back in the day. At first I began mapping all possible paths using my physical Hexapon. Then I tried to draw those paths without crossings. But when I tested the game, I ended up finding paths I didn't really anticipate. So I resorted to this online tool to trace all paths, and then I decided to ditch the idea of avoiding crossed paths. The end result is this one you have in the game now. Not very clean, but I think it's readable. As I was already planning to add in-game instructions, I dedicated a page to explain this part of the UI a little better. Besides the main gameplay screen, I needed to do a title screen. At first, I thought about doing one of those Chrome logos you see in so many 80s themed movies and games. But then I thought it would be nice to keep with that circuit board theme here too. So I drew the logo and I wanted to animate it as if a signal was going from one side of the circuit to the other. I animated the whole sequence in Sprite and it took 39 frames for the whole animation. Implementing this in the game wasn't so easy though, as I had to map all the frames and then add them one by one. There were easier ways to do it, but they wouldn't achieve the same result I was aiming for. I'm pretty happy with the results, even if it meant using lots of lines of code. As for the music, my first idea was to have two songs with long loops, one for the title screen, the other for the gameplay. As I finished the song for the title screen and tried to add it to the game, I realized it was taking a lot of ROM space, and it seemed to me that adding another big song would be impossible, as I was trying to keep the game small. Master System games bigger than 48K require bank switching, a coding strategy that seemed complicated for a beginner like me. So I abandoned one of the songs and made a shorter loop just for the title screen, moving the song I had already done to the main gameplay. I believe it is better placed now than it was before, and I'm also pretty happy with the results. There are several things I thought about including in the game but I ended up not doing, like making a pause screen to show all possible board patterns and the path the player had taken in that particular match, and adding a learning curve for the machine, showing the games it lost and won. Another thing that was suggested after the game was released was adding an option for a second human player, and that's something I may add in the future. I'll leave you now with a short clip showing pretty much all you will see in the game, but I encourage you to download it and test it yourself. It is completely free and the link for the download is in the description below.